This is a table tennis ball. It can make or break the experience of playing the game. And over the years, we had many different iterations of the table tennis ball. Here's the evolution of the table tennis ball. Obviously, there's a version of the ball where people probably made them out of the balls of the sheep or something like that, or the skin, and just put it together. But we're here not to talk about that. Here we're gonna talk about the specific balls that were used in competitive play with table tennis, that kind of what it looks like nowadays. 38mm celluloid ball is what players in competitively were using since 1930s. This was the ball that they used up until the Olympic Games in 2000 in Sydney. A lot of people watching this channel, and probably a lot of people who played the game, they don't even know that this area existed really. They just thought the ball was the same every time, and the material was used up until recently was pretty similar. But the size of the ball was a lot more different. 38mm celluloid ball was a lot different as far as feel, as far as touch, and as far as speed of the game. The most obvious thing, it's 38mm. Enough said. The main thing though is the speed of play was tremendous. If you look at any other game before 2000, you would notice that a lot of players in that time were playing far from the table because the ball was so small. Because you had to make up the time, make up the speed and the distance the ball travels with. And so you're gonna see players like Jan-Ove Waldner in his prime, Jürgen Persson in his prime. Here's a name drop for you. Jean-Michel Save in his prime. The guy was playing 15 meters behind the table and was still, the game was still super fast. This was probably the most entertaining era of table tennis. A lot of spectacular plays, a lot of far from the table, counter topspin. We're going to talk about this in a different video with different rubbers and different rules at that point in time. And those legends were made specifically in that era. 90s, 80s, especially when the rubbers were a little bit more of a modern era rubbers, like with Butterfly Bryce or something like that. And the game just felt a lot more crazier and unpredictable at that point in time. Not to say that those players never played close to the table. Obviously they did. There was a big contrast of style, but the main point was that in order to play that speed, you had to play somewhere around the middle to far zones of the table, which was kind of fun to watch. But not to say that those players never adjusted to the new style of play. The year is 2000. Right after the Sydney Olympics, the ITTF decided that they needed change. And change they did. Bad visibility of the 38mm ball. They decided to increase the sphere of the ball to 40mm, which slowed down the play, but it actually was quite beneficial. And I will say that this ball was probably the best era of table tennis. This was the standard of the table tennis since 2000 up until 2014. This ball was used when I started playing table tennis, so I never really played with the 38mm ball. But why do I call it the best one? Is because it was quite variable in terms of the play styles. We still had a bunch of defenders who played at a high level and competed for high places with 40mm ball. We also had players who were purely power. We had players who were more of a finesse type of guys, who were using more of a spin, who were using play on the table with high spin. Had people like Rui Singmin who can cover now with the full forehand without worrying about the backhand. I believe that era of the game was super fascinating. And I understand that environmentally celluloid probably not the best material to make the table tennis balls out of. But as far as the games that were played, especially with the rule changes and the newer equipment that came in, I think we've had the best era of table tennis from 2000 up until 2014. If you look at a lot of, even the golden generation of Chinese players were playing with Wang Hao and Ma Lin and Ma Long and Zhang Jike, they were all playing. That's the game where they had to play close to the table. But then a lot of those points were, if we could play close, the point lasts a little longer. Now we have to go back and play from there. A lot of the stuff that is lost in today's game, in my opinion, it's what I'm gonna get to later with the plastic ball, is I feel really passionate about this. Celluloid ball just it provided a lot more variety to the game. Why, you ask? The spin was a lot different, especially if comparing to the plastic ball. The spin that you can put on a ball and receive was a lot different, and even for top players, it was a lot more harder to deal with, which is my main point here. This spin is such a huge part of the game. The signature style and the signature shots were the ones with the most amount of spin. And I will be reviewing a few games later where I was just browsing YouTube one day and I'm like saw a couple of games from like 2012. And I'm like, damn, table tennis changed a lot. Obviously, I don't want to be an old head and say, "Oh, table tennis changed and it's all bad." It's definitely not. But it changed in quite of what I see in my world, in my vision of what table tennis should be, and it's just two different things. Hey, but this is an evolution, and things have to evolve. So what was next? It's July 2014, and I'm at the peak of my powers. I'm getting ready to play Euros for national team for Ukraine, for junior national team. And here's the rule. We need to play with plastic balls starting this July. So here I am at the practice facility to try out the new plastic ball. Here's the things I noticed. Well, first of all, noticeable from the jump straight away. The ball was bouncing kind of weird. The main thing, I think they even said in their like little conference or whatever they did, even with the plastic, they wanted to slow the game down even more. It was really noticeable the ball was much slower. The game immediately switched to what it is today. Kind of, you have to be near the table if you want to play fast. If you want to play far from the table, it just becomes badminton-like, which I don't really love, but maybe that was the intention of the ITTF straight away, to make it more of a badminton type of feel. I don't know about that. It's a different sport, but it is what it is. Another thing that was hella different is lack of quality control. First practice that we had to do, we bought Nitaku balls. Nitaku was actually, at that time, probably they made the best balls for table tennis, and all balls that brands were making. Nitaku just made the best ones. For some reason, a lot of the companies that were bringing balls were not quite round. For some reason, they were just missing that point in quality control. Like, you buy a box of 10 balls, 7 of them will be trash and just wonky like this. And I'm like, what's going on? Maybe it was the plastic, maybe something else, but I don't know. It was just absolute garbage. So Nitaku was making the most rounded balls, so shout out to Nitaku. But then we started playing. At the end of practice, I had 2 balls left. So as you can see, they were not really durable. And let me tell you, the box of 10 balls, 3 stars, would cost like 35 euros. You know how expensive that is, especially for Ukraine? Just waste 35 bucks per training session for 10 balls? Are you mad? It really got to a point where a lot of the talks I heard, even not from my gym, but like all around the table tennis community, that was like, is ITTF making those balls less durable on purpose so that people spend more money on balls and they can make more money this way? And we're like, and the balls were breaking at such pace with like so often that it kind of sounded like the truth. But not only they were not durable, the amount of spin decreased significantly. If there's a top player plays against a person who's lower level, there's still going to be this skill gap of the spin is just crazy. But when 2 pros are going at it, I think there's much less challenge for a top player to deal with the spin of the ball. I feel like back in the day, it was a lot more of a struggle to deal with somebody else's spin. I believe nowadays, this is what sucks the most about table tennis is the game just became whoever closer to the table wins. There's not much spin variation you can do. There's not going to be a lot of difference if you play the same speed but different spin. It just needs to be spin plus speed and more speed and more speed and more power and more speed. But if you play with that speed from far from the table, it's still going to be slower than somebody playing with less speed but closer to the table. You see what I mean? So it's this point in my opinion where table tennis changed from, okay, here's this variation from a defensive style of player. Here's like Yun Mizutani used to be crazy with like far from a table, right? If you look at the old tapes, and he was like number 3 in the world for so long, and then I feel like he just disappeared after 2014 because his game just didn't fit right? Most powerful player like Hugo Calderano still has to play super close to the table in order to succeed, and this is the biggest part of today's table tennis. Is if you see the games today, they all look the same to me. It's all about who can play faster near the table, and that's it. And I remember before 2014, there was a lot of like change into that, but it was still difficult, a lot more difficult to manage because you have to deal with so much spin if you play over the top of the table, right? But now it's all over the top of the table. It's never a variation, and I feel like it just ended the variety of styles that table tennis had to offer before. Now it's just super similar. Now it's you either more forehand dominant or backhand dominant, and that's about it. Obviously, there's still spectacular points far from a table when it comes to this, but there's no play style built on spectacular plays far from a table, because it's just tactically it's never smart. You just ask for problems if you play far from a table. That's just my opinion, and that's just what kind of happens with the table tennis. But here's 2020 rolls around. There are a lot of improvements made to the balls. Obviously, there were a lot of improvements from that span of from 2014 to 2020, but 2020 was the more official date that I could find of the ball is just changing, and 40 millimeters is no longer it's 40 plus, which means that they innovated a little bit in the production part of the of the ball itself. And obviously, if I put any video from WTT, they just demonetize me straight away, even though if I talk over it. But I just thought it was really funny when there's a video about how table tennis balls are made, and this lady just goes,
balls.
Yeah, that's why you watch this channel, baby. The improvement came with the 40 plus ball. Obviously, DHS is probably the best at making the balls, and they have their own D40 plus ball that they make, which is the plastic is a little bit softer, which brings a little bit more stability. Bounce is more consistent. The trajectory is more consistent. The balls are more durable, which is always a plus. The balls are also a little bit more kind of heavier on a racket, which I think before that was when you played, you felt that the ball is quite light. Now it's a little bit more heavier on the racket, which is always a plus. They weren't breaking so often, so that's a win. But the game stayed the same, and it kind of sucks. I understand there were environmental reasons to get away from the celluloid balls, but if you're looking from the standpoint of table tennis, I believe the best era of table tennis is long gone. But the evolution is meant to take us into better places and improve with each implementation. Can the next era of table tennis be the best one and bring back the variety of the game? Do let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, as 90% of you probably not subscribed watching this. But also, we have you can become a sponsor. There's quite a few videos of my games from Road to WTT series that are for members only. I also reduced the price of the members only, and our new name for members is Timo Ballers. You see what I did there? So become a Timo Baller today. But yeah, if you want to see more videos like this, please let me know in the comments, and I see you in the next one. Peace out. Bye-bye.